Welcome to the LegalTube podcast, presented by LawyerLocate.ca. Join us as we explore the latest trends, strategies, and tools for promoting your legal practice in the digital age. Hosted by Mark Robbins, CEO of LawyerLocate.ca, LegalTube, and Digital MSpace, where we're all about legal marketing online for Canadian lawyers. Let's dive in.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the LegalTube podcast. Today, we're very, very pleased to have as our guest Kevin O'Keefe, who is the founder and CEO of LexBlog in the United States. Kevin, thank you. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. My pleasure.
Now, you and I go back some years. I recall we met, I'm going to say, almost 20 years ago at an LMA function in downtown Toronto. And then you invited me, as well as other people. You had started a regular thing when you would do appearances called beer for bloggers, and I remember going to a nice pub in downtown Toronto and having some Guinness with you and just talking. As a matter of fact, I remember after that I stole that idea from you and started doing it to help market my business. So yeah,
it was less expensive than advertising.
Exactly. Yeah. And it was a good way to meet people, a good way to engage, for sure.
Yeah, it works.
Bring us up to date. What's going on with you and in your business life and LexBlog?
Well, LexBlog is in its 21st year, so things change. Yet they remain the same in the law. 21 years ago, no one would take seriously the fact that someone would publish on the internet. They would share their insight and commentary, as a way to advance the law and to, at the same time, establish thought leadership, just like lawyers always did through writing and speaking. You advance today, there's much the same, but at the same time, the concept of, content marketing and content for, visibility and content for SEO, that's changed things a little bit. For LexBlog, we have to focus on reinventing ourselves. We'll be in our second 20, we're in our third decade. And, when you're in your first, few years, you're telling the team, hey, how many teams start from scratch and build a company and survive, to 3 or 4 or 5 years. Now today, you have to tell the team that we have to reinvent ourselves, and we'll do so. One, because we have to, and two, because of things that are going to change very dramatically in the law and in digital media.
Yeah, it's interesting. I know there's a lot of similarities in legal marketing to the United States and Canada. We have probably more restrictions on some of what lawyers can say and how they can market. But we've certainly seen a change here where blogging was king, especially with that vertical with lawyers. They seem to really, naturally, lawyers like to write, that, as you aptly pointed out. But we have seen the shift now away from blogging and more into podcasting, and vlogging was the old term we used to use it, because video content appears to be, from an SEO perspective now, far more important than written content is. I think that change has become pretty accurate. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, the studies would indicate, the Green Target study just came out this year, and blogging and LinkedIn are the fastest growing areas for influence and getting hired as a lawyer. So if you're looking to create influence and thought leadership status, they're there, and relationship building. So, I was pleased to see, the evidence indicating that blogging is really among the most influential ways to get hired by a lawyer, short of earned media. So if the Toronto Star called you up and interviewed you on a particular niche subject that's highly influential, if you publish about it, it's about 69% of corporations and in-house counsel look at that as influential, versus the earned media is at 88. So for the idea of personal publishing in any form, it's really high. The other thing that'll probably be influential, and who knows how it's all going to play out, but it appears that blogging is highly influential among LLMs. And so if I do research on a subject, I often come up with a lawyer who has written on that subject as a source. And, is that going to be more influential because those machines are going to understand who's influential and not? So, I think that the different forms of digital media are more advanced and easier to use. Um, and I think lawyers are more comfortable using it as we have a new generation, because look how many lawyers use TikTok as a
Yeah.
way to connect with people. And for us, we have to be cognizant of that, because if I'm talking to somebody today and they point out, well, you guys aren't hosting various forms of other forms of digital media on your network, that's an eye opener for me. That's true. Like you're saying, there's other forms of digital media that can and should be used.
Right. And then we start to see, everybody's, I don't know, there's some divisiveness on the subject of AI, depending on how you want to apply it. I know our experience, even within my own office and within our producers, like I have, like Rebecca, for example, one of our producers, isn't really comfortable with the broad use of AIs. It's a useful tool for when we're doing digital production because it makes our job somewhat easier. But I also see AI has the potential to really cause problems in the sense that you have to be very, very careful. Like I've learned, the prompt is the key to success with AI, and how you build out your prompts to get the most accurate information back. Um, I know from like I say, from a marketing perspective, it's a very useful tool for us. How do you see AI in your world?
I think AI is, whether we like it or not, is the most significant advancement of our time. It might be bigger than the steam engine, might be bigger than the car, might be bigger than electricity. So, you know, it's really not up for debate that, gee, I don't like to turn on the light because I don't like electricity.
Right.
It's here. When you look at it from the context of what will likely happen with AI, well, it will probably advance to the point where we don't do what we do nearly as much as we do it. So maybe it took us 4 or 5 days to do our job, a week or 5 days. Maybe it'll take us just 1 or 2 days a week to do that same thing with AI. And so when you start to think of it in that sense, let's get out there as to what's really going to happen. And so that things like prices will drop, the price of the lawyer will drop, will charge, the prices that you'll pick up in the grocery store, those will drop. Um, a little bit, machines will be working for you in that concept. That's just really unavoidable because of what we have. We can't stop that. And um, it's not going to be stopped by bar associations that say you can do this or you can do that.
Right.
um, because we all have to act in the best interest of the people we serve. So, from a lawyer's perspective, the way I look at it from publishing, whether it's publishing in the form of digital or whether it's copy, it's all digital, but whether it's other forms of digital other than copy, does it help you do a better job? And the answer is undoubtedly yes, it does. So if I'm covering a niche subject on, let's say, some oil and gas issue in Alberta, and I want to get into brainstorming, it's probably the best place to go. I mean,
Oh
it's
yeah.
yeah, I can brainstorm the issue. I can think of what I may want to write on. It's extending my knowledge, and then it's even um, it learns to help you write, give you ideas. So I was scared of it from a standpoint, do I have a company anymore? What purpose
Yeah.
do I have when everything can be procured by machines? Um, and I may be living in the right time because I don't have to go 20 years in the business. That'll be my kids' problem. Um,
Right.
so it, I'm optimistic about it. I think, when you look at it, I think the way we should look at it, you know, could it cure cancer? Yeah, it's the only thing that will kill cancer. Um, could it, limit climate change? Yes, it's the only thing that will limit climate change. So there's so much good things that can come out of it. How do we apply the good into our field?
Yeah, and it's you make a lot of valid points. I mean, certainly in our small scale up here with Lawyer Locate and LegalTube and in our digital M space businesses, the production stuff is where I'm using the AI the most. We'll take, for example, this podcast, run probably half hour, 40 minutes. When it's done and it's been posted on all the platforms, we'll then take that and we'll put it into an AI called Opus AI. And Opus AI will give me up to, depending on the length of the show, up to 60 YouTube shorts, TikToks.
That's cool.
And it does it, and then it ranks it. So it says, here's this one's got 98% success, could go viral, and here's the reasons why, and it goes all the way down the list. Now, that's a perfect example of the time saving.
Right.
If we do that manually, this took 3 minutes.
Yeah.
To do that manually, you're looking at a day's work to do all those edits and to put all the titling in and to put the closed captioning. And so those aspects of AI for us, I found has been a really good tool, for our clients, both our members. We do several things now. The Lawyer Locate's website, from when you first saw it, is obviously, like you said, we reinvented ourselves about every 4 years. And now it's far more robust. It's far more video content driven because that's the way things are going. And now we're trying to adjust our SEO tactics to include and optimize the fact that more and more people are using an AI search tool instead of Google. And that's made a big change for your SEO results and having to adjust for that. When we talk legal marketing, and that's North American, I mean, I don't think there's a big difference between how we go about it in Canada and how you go about it in the States. But what do you see in the next 5 years with all this stuff that's happened over that such a short period of time with AI, as much as well as other things? Where do you see legal marketing going?
I think one thing that's going on right now is the amount of money that's being invested by private equity companies and VCs. And so they're going to have people approach them with ideas and they're going to invest heavily in it. And they're going to buy other companies along the way. So we're going to see a lot of things come out. They're going to be, interesting. And whether they're good, bad, or indifferent, I think you're going to see a lot of lawyers follow them. Now, that's in the case of medium and larger size firms, but not all of them. I mean, there's a lot of VC-driven products that are reaching small law as well. So, it's hard to know. I mean, there's somebody sent me a link yesterday to, I can't think of the name of the company, and at first I thought it was a company run by a founder that I know down in Dallas, and it wasn't. It was just a similar name. But it's a VC funded company with some very capable people working there. Half a dozen leaders. Well, it's it's all about producing content as fast as you can that's targeted for such and such. And so they're gonna and they're just gonna they're gonna stop they're gonna start at the largest firm in North America and in London, and go through 500,000 and see how many they can pick up that will pay for that. And you're going to see the firms get locked into that type of thing as they go. So it's really hard to know. For us, I have to figure out, okay, where do we fit in this world? And I think we fit in closer to the publishing world, where as a practicing lawyer, for the better part of 20 years, I wrote one chapter for Matthew Bender when they came knocking at my door about something, but I was not sought after to maybe my state trial lawyers association, but I wasn't sought after as a regular speaker or author or whatever. Well, the internet broke down those walls. Once there was a tool called a blog platform, a managed platform to log in and write. Wow, websites were one thing, but now to have this publishing tool, good lawyers publish, and so I'm still going down the optimistic side. For me, this is a different business than other people. That lawyers will publish; they'll continue to publish, and that with artificial intelligence, they will start to see that it's easier not to produce the copy for them, but that they can publish for themselves, so that in the niche areas, the lawyers have an opportunity, and they better get after those niche areas, because they're not going to be around if they're practicing a general practice area and they're 25 years old or something. It's going to be too hard.
Right. Right.
The lawyers that are 70 years old, they made it, and they'll make it. They have some great clients or whatever over time. So we'll stick to the publishing side, but I do see some dramatic changes that will come down and be highly influential, um, both in the legal research space as well as the marketing side. We're trying to maintain that influence, even though we tend to communicate with the business development people, communications and marketing people, and law firms and the lawyers directly. Try to raise what our offering around publishing.
It just a little bit more on the AI side because of we have vested interest. We about 2 months ago, we've started to work with a person out of England, out of Birmingham, to build out our own AI, Lawyer Locate, which will be a legal marketing AI that's geared for the Canadian legal market
That's
specifically.
great.
And it's a big learning curve for me because I want to be directly involved with all the process so I can understand it. And plus, they want my input from the market because they're not
Right.
marketers, they're not salespeople, so they want to understand
Right.
how would we want this AI to function, and also having it be able to adjust to each law society or bar association in each province because the rules are different in each province
Right.
when it comes to any type of marketing. So it's a pretty extensive deal to get the thing built. And the more I see what it does and what it can learn and how it can benefit. And one of the things we talked about was blogging because the guy who's doing it says, "Are you don't want to incorporate?" I said, "Yes, because it's lawyers. Lawyers want to blog." I'm not saying that's the only avenue
Right.
to market, but I think, I have clients right now that are avid bloggers. I have a wills and estate lawyer that, I mean, the annotations alone are about 10 pages. So that's from one extreme to the other. Then I have
Right.
an employment lawyer that does a monthly streaming show called Fire Away, Stuart Rudner, that we produce for him. And he's embraced the video content as opposed and gone away. They still do blogging. They have associates in the firm that'll do, keep the blog with fresh material. But I do see in Canada in particular that the slide is going more towards digital video content. And you're right with TikTok, because when TikTok first came on, I was really nervous about it. And it was actually Stuart that said, what should we do? So I kind of spent a few days just playing with it. And I said, you know what? I think I can see where this is a tool to add the human side to a lawyer. It's an opportunity not for you to sell your services, but more about selling you, and that you're just an ordinary guy that's a lawyer, which speaks loudly to clients in general. I mean, even at the corporate level, I still think that lawyers that can present as a personable person stands a better chance of gaining that client than the ones that kind of create this other hard ass image. What do you think?
Right. Well, Carolyn Alphon's done a great job on TikTok. And so if I go on TikTok in the morning, I'm not doing it right now, but I would say earlier last year, the first thing that I did in the morning before I flipped open the New York Times was I flipped open TikTok. And, I got what I wanted to see, so I may have got, a senator from New Jersey, Cory Booker, highly influential. He's on there every morning after he runs. So he's done running. He's sitting there walking into his place in Newark, uh, and he's talking to us, on a myriad of things. Carolyn might be, explaining to people, she's a very sophisticated energy practice. How you can brief something, and or how she may have used AI for something. Um, she introduced us to AI. I mean, it must have been more than a year ago I was doing this, because as soon as AI hit with GBT, she was explaining its value immediately. Within weeks. About how
Yeah.
it's used. Without TikTok, I wouldn't have seen all that. And it would have hurt some lawyers if it was taken off in the United States. because it'd be no different than if a lawyer in 1996, like me, was making a good name for himself on AOL, and because I was answering a lot of questions and getting a lot of work. All of a sudden, if it went off the air, that would have been a serious problem. And
Yeah.
you know, you'll see me on TikTok. I will be honest soon. I like the whole concept of it, and I'm always goofing with stuff. Bought some easy portable mics that I just wear over my chin that I can hold on with a magnet and walk around. Um, um, one of the plus reasons and actually staying living in downtown Seattle is I can walk over the courthouse. I can walk down by the ocean. It gives it
Right.
just a nice feel. And we rate. Oh wow, knocked over my iPad. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
One of the things we rate blog. Now I'll just sidetrack for 1 second, but I'll give
Yep.
you how this came about. But with a concept called storify, are they storifying their blog? And AI was able to look at 10,000 blog posts of mine and evaluate what made better blog posts, and then break it down into criteria, and then annotate the criteria, and then look at blogs and give us a score for 10 different criteria, one of which was to storify. Are they talking things in a story type of way,
Right.
not to talk about going fishing or something like that, but can they explain a legal concept in a way that maybe they would have over lunch with somebody, or sitting at the corner of a bar having a long neck beer, because that's real to people, whether they're, a consumer that's dealing with a, domestic abuse issue, or whether it's a corporate executive. You just talk with people, and so you're so right when you get into things like TikTok. One, it means that um, the person's not afraid to try new things, and it makes them real. They'll learn their way through it, and then we have to remember, where are people's heads at today. In Seattle, the people that are leading some major corporations, your Amazons and your Microsoft, they're not 60 years old. They're more
Yeah.
likely more likely to be looking at, them, and their cohorts might be more likely to be spending their time on Facebook and TikTok and YouTube, like you're describing. YouTube is, especially the video,
Yeah.
than the things that I might be out here, on.
Yeah, you said it earlier. It's exciting times. I mean, I'm not going to give away my age, but you and I are pretty close, I think, to being the same age. And I actually fascinate myself that a lot of times with my staff, I'll be the first person to look at some of this new stuff like TikTok and when it first came on, and I was an early adapter on Facebook, and you know, the one, and I always get in trouble with this one because on my personal side and part of my business side, I've never really been a great fan of LinkedIn. I understand why everybody likes it. From a B2B perspective, it's a good platform, but I just, because I don't know whether it's the uniqueness of we cater to Canadian lawyers exclusively, and it's a marketing idea, and Lawyer Locate, yes, is a referral service, but they also, we're clearly a marketing arm for lawyers.
Right.
Natalie, when she created it 24 years ago, she created it out of a niche that she saw was she had gone through or was going through her divorce, and she couldn't talk to anybody. So who do you go to get a lawyer? You don't want to talk to your family. You don't want to talk to your friend because you know which friend is more of a friend to your spouse. And that's where she came up with it. I remember the first interview she did with a local legal newspaper, Law Times. One of the things she said, I liken Lawyer Locate to a dating service for lawyers and clients. I'm matching the right lawyer with the right client. So, we've gone so far from that now. I mean, the referrals are still important, but we're more about, we're giving you a bigger voice online where people are looking for lawyers, and they're likely to find you under our brand because our brand's been around for 24 years, which
Right.
I also find it's unusual because you're similar timing. It's like I said to Natalie the other day, I said, we've been in business for 24 years on the internet. And I did a little search and I couldn't find another company, small, medium-sized company that had been online active for 20 odd years.
Yeah. I mean, I was just cleaning up a couple things on LinkedIn with ChatGPT's help. I realized I think it's probably 98 or 99 when Prairie Loud incorporated, and we were running it inside the law office before then. And you
Right.
realize, oh my God, it's going to be not too long. It's going to be 30 years ago that
Wow.
that me and my team of 3 or 4 were trying to figure out what this thing was, and had an intern from the local university and just turned people loose because we were producing a huge amount of content. We had 4 listservs going that were probably doing 10 or 15 posts a day. We had message boards going. Um, uh, we didn't know what we were doing, but it was producing a huge amount of content that we were archiving on the web. She figured out how to put it on the web, which I thought was amazing. She goes, I figured out how to do a file transfer protocol to start
Yeah.
taking our content to the internet. And she had, every time you wanted to add things, you would reorganize what you had, you
Yeah.
know, and then you take it the steps along the way. All of a sudden you just go, wait a second, there's this thing called CSS web standards where content is independent of design, where you can actually put content in. You don't have to change the site.
That's
uh,
amazing.
you realize that's not that for us. It's not that long ago. For if you talk to somebody that's 30 years old today, they would think, well, that's all funny, but that's irrelevant and just dumb. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, we've lived a good time during this. It's going to be funny that the next 2 generations, it's going to go faster. So what we
Yeah.
thought went fast is going to look probably silly. Um, when you hear some of the things like Bill Gates, talks of AI, he sounds the same as he talked about the internet. I remember listening to him talk about the internet in the mid '90s, and I'm thinking, wow, could that happen? Where you could be in your car and going down the highway, you could get information from would come in your car and you could communicate with the
Yeah.
outside. I'm thinking, how could that even be possible? Because we didn't have an internet then. The idea of moving information digitally was even far-fetched. He sees things just as clear, as the nose on his face now as to what AI will do. And yeah, it is a little bit scary because it's the unknown, but it doesn't mean it's bad. And it doesn't mean, we shouldn't get used to it type of thing.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I go back, when I was in my 20s and I was a licensed private investigator in Ontario. And I remember way before computers, I mean, when I had to do any research on anybody, if I was doing skip trace, I'd be down at the big downtown Toronto Library research facility, and you'd spend a day looking at microfiche, right? Just to try and find some information. And I think back and say, if we had this internet, this interweb thing back then, would have saved me tons of hours and made me a lot more money if I had the ability to do that.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I explained to somebody on Sunday, the New York Times did this huge story on the Murdoch lawsuit, and all this information they had and all this stuff. And I said, you know what? I said, they got all that information out of discovery, and all that discovery had to be filed with the court for them to even get it. And I said, in the old days, you'd have to roll a copier machine in and go through the pages one by one and then mark it up. I said, I'll bet that to save expenses, the courts make that stuff digitally available, and that the New York Times can just suck it in
Ah,
and might be able to have it organized with software that they have. It's totally different. The ability to report on things has changed, just like you're describing.
oh yeah, it's a different world, like you say. It's fast. I mean, I look at my 18-year-old, and I look at the way his generation are communicating with each other. I mean, it's like the cartoon. Everybody's at the table with the phone in their hands, so they're at the bar with the phone in their hands, and they're texting each other. And sometimes I look at that and I go, we've gone too far. We're losing our humanness. Sometimes I feel like that, so from a social side, but it's exciting times. So let me ask you, Kevin, all your years of experience in blogging and as a lawyer, what would be your top three pieces of advice, pearls of wisdom that you would want to share with a young lawyer coming out on how to market his practice?
Get out the magic wand and just imagine what you would like to accomplish in your wildest dreams. And to take into account what would be meaningful to you um, in life in that area of law. Why? Um, uh, Look at niches. Niches not only lead to riches, but they're very rewarding in multiple ways. I mean, to become a lawyer that's renowned, um, maybe it's in your town, maybe it's in your province or state, maybe it's nationally, or maybe it's worldwide, is a good feeling. Um, and it will allow you to travel, you know, widely, with your husband or your wife. I mean, that's an incredible feeling. If all of a sudden somebody's flying, from Banff over to Toronto and then getting on a jet and going over to Amsterdam and they're being invited to speak and they're being paid their way, and you're just looking around, you're just going, how did this happen? and
Yeah.
but people should write that down, that they really want to do it that way. And then understand that it's not a it's not a sprint, it is a marathon. But at the same time, if you're applying yourself correctly, y- you're noticing that you're generating some form of business. Start to observe what you're doing, set some goals. That my goal is to understand that this could generate business for me at the end of a year. If at the end of 2 years it isn't the best decision I've made in my life, then I must be doing something wrong. So I think the biggest things aren't, the skill set, or I should do this, or I should do that, or I should write this length, or the titles, or this frequency, is, but to set the bar very high, because there's most lawyers do not set the bar very high, and most of them are afraid to do things that are different than other lawyers, and um, and the other thing is, I don't think most lawyers work as hard as they think they work. So, if you looked at the lawyers that are really applying themselves and building a name and building a practice, they're not working 7 hours, 5 days a week. They're just not. Um, it's what they do in life. It's a life. It's a lifestyle. It's not a job. It's just a lifestyle. When you're a lawyer, when a potential client calls you on a Sunday afternoon, you take the call, or it drops you an email. you know, and yet when you look at some of the Clio studies, the lawyers don't respond to emails and phone calls very often. It's just shocking. So
Yeah.
in the case of business development and marketing, be realizing your competition might be weaker than you think. You just got to find that niche, because maybe what you're doing is you're saying, okay, in Winnipeg, there's not a lawyer that does probate litigation. So when families get in a fight over a will or an estate, there's nobody here that does it. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
If I write on this issue, I'll be the most renowned person on that issue. So that niche is what I really think is important, and then go after it with your passion.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Boy, this time has flown, Kevin.
It was enjoyable.
Before we wrap it up, let's let my listeners know what's going on with you and your life and your business these days.
Oh, LexBlog's been around for 21st year, and somehow we're able to keep reinventing ourselves with passion and energy. And I very much believe that it's around the passion and the vision and the values that you have in a company. So as long as we stay focused on those things, we'll continue to do good work. It's amazing though that there are now, we're serving 54,000 lawyers on that platform, which is a staggering number. And we will
Wow.
go by 1 million blog posts this year. That's a lot of content, 1 million blog posts this year. So some firms will continue to stay with you forever. Some firms might leave. Some firms might come back. It's a business. And I think the challenge is for us, just like a lawyer, and for you, but it sounds like you're doing some good things with AI. How do we deploy AI?
Right.
How do we take this secondary law that's sitting there in 1 million blog posts? It's great insight and commentary. Think of all the insight and commentary that your clients have shared over the years, whether in video, text, whatever. That's more valuable than law reviews. So what's the role that LexBlog plays in that space? Because we have gathered all this content, and then how do we harness AI for its delivery directly from LexBlog, but also through the legal research companies? And so one of the things we'll be working on a larger extent this year is getting that legal insight to places which can be accessed by lawyers but also by the public, so they can go have a conversation with lawyers, if you will. But there's still plenty of, as you know, there's plenty of areas of law that are going uncovered with digital and text.
Yeah, for sure. Kevin, this has been fabulous. You're a wealth of information. You're somebody I've respected for over 20 years. You've always been helpful to us when we had questions way back when we were just trying to get through our growing pains. Natalie has never forgot, some of the pieces of advice you gave her and gave us to help grow our business. And it's just been wonderful. And you're an awesome guest. I hope we can circle back and get you back on again, because there's still tons of stuff I think we could be talking about that we'd want to share out there. Let people know how, if they want to get in touch with you, where should they be looking?
So LexBlog.com, or just Google Kevin O'Keefe, or you can Google Real Lawyers, and Real Lawyers is number one.
We will we'll make sure that there's a printout at the bottom of the video, so that people will be able to find you that way too. Again, it's been a real pleasure, Kevin. It's nice to see you again. It's nice to catch up. Let's not make this a one-off. Thanks everybody for listening to the show. Really appreciate it. Please like our podcast. Subscribe it if you want to get heads up on what our next guests are going to be and when the show will be on the air. Once again, it's been a pleasure to have Kevin O'Keefe, the founder and CEO of LexBlog, as our guest today. Hope everybody has a great day. We'll see you all soon.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of the LegalTube podcast. Ready to take your legal marketing to the next level? Our show delivers expert insights and practical advice to help you succeed in today's competitive legal landscape. Whether you're a seasoned pro or just starting out, this podcast is for you. For more information, check out LegalTube.ca. And if you have any questions, get in touch with us. Thanks for listening.